Okay, so here we are. Uh, Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you might be watching this uh, CO Visit live stream. Once again, welcome to everybody. As you can see on the screen, Matthew Mile Gray, thank you for joining us all the way from South Africa. Once again, so looking in the chat, we've got Jeff here. We've got already 4 people connected. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And remember that there's diverse ways of supporting the CO Visit during the live stream. We have the super thanks, and you can also become a member, and there's other things. So just keep that in mind. So thank you, everybody, and I hope everyone's well. Hope everybody's doing well on this Sunday, already into February. It's amazing how fast time is going, how fast the year goes already. And so, Matthew, how are things in your area of the world?
So far, so good, and it's great to be with you, Colin. Thanks for the invite, and it's nice to be with the folks that are tuning in. Yeah, how's Honduras?
Thank you. Everything's going well here. Yeah, we've had the weather is just all over the place, back and forth, very, very, been really weird this year, but I guess that's to be expected with everything that's going on in the world and on the planet. And everyone, I just want to mention as well, of course, here, everyone that's connected in the chat, you can also go over and check out Matthew's page and his review each day of the topic that we're going to be speaking about today, among other things. We don't necessarily have to limit ourselves just to the topic of Norway, but we're going to start out with that. Of course, in the chat, you are welcome to interact with us and ask any questions or throw out there any other topic, anything else that is interesting you, or any other questions you have or worries or anything else. But we're going to focus right now on what happened the past week with the Supreme Court hearing in Norway. And wow, what a roller coaster ride. So also, I want to bring out, as we always do, please keep in mind, everyone that's listening to this live stream, that we are not trying to get to any specific conclusions with what we're talking about today. Okay? As Matthew likes to say, a working thesis, right? Which, working on a thesis, of course, with all objectivity, we have to accept antithesis. And what do we want to get to? Synthesis, right? So that's a majestic way of that explanation. So this is, hi Pam, welcome, thank you very much, appreciate that. So I just want to invite everyone and just make sure that you understand that this is a sharing of ideas. Okay, so there are no ideas or thoughts that are, going to be rejected or anything like that. We're simply putting together all of our thoughts and experiences as well to try to figure out, try to understand exactly what's going on and what has been going on. And maybe, we can throw around possible, and it's kind of like those videos. I don't know if anyone remembers that. I don't know if they have these anymore, but there used to be these computer games where you could choose a different outcome for each specific scenario, and then it would lead you to that specific thing. And that's kind of what we're doing here. That's why I say anything is accepted. Any thoughts, any comments, or things that you noticed about it that maybe we didn't. Matthew, what I wanted to I guess let's get this ball rolling here. One of the interesting things that you mentioned at the beginning, and you can please help me with the terminology here, because I might not get it all right, but it was something along the lines of a double binding decision and consequences, which is really interesting, because when you said that, that unlocked something in my head, a memory that I always wondered about ever since I was very young and was a part of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And it seems like they took that concept right out of the Bible, because it always seemed to me like they would tell us when I was a witness about, witnesses always talk about free will. You have free will. You have to make your own decision. And that's, it's up to you what you do. But then I would read in the Old Testament, Exodus, Deuteronomy, the first chapters are Leviticus. And you would see this concept of God was telling the people, here's a choice. I'm going to put these choices out before you. And you can choose this, or you can choose this. It's your choice. You make it up. Life or death, or serving Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever you want to use there. Or, you can go your own way. You can do what you want. But if you do choose that, you're going to die. So I look back and I go, well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. That's not much of a choice. When if you choose something different, then you die. So is that really a choice? Is that, it seems like to me, the conclusion I came to after many, many, many years is that this concept of free will does not exist. It's all, as far as you look at the Christian, the Bible, and there's a lot of overtones of predestination, and, these things were all set out ahead of time. And so, but anyway, coming back to applying this to the Norway case and this double binding decision with its consequences, maybe you could give our audience here a little explanation of how that works. What's involved in that?
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Colin. I think you've got it summed pretty well, the gist of it, because you're talking about, well, what kind of choice is it? If everything you choose is wrong, you're always in the gulag, or it's just going to end up in you lose your life, the ultimate cost. So any kind of high control system, especially damaging ones, cults don't always have to be an abusive spiritual situation. A cult could have a positive effect, for instance. But for the kind of scenarios that we're looking into, our concern or our search for solutions, being solution orientated, is about trying to heal people. It's trying to say, well, look, if there is a psychological damage or persons that are in actual physical harm or even spiritual harm, or a combination of all of these various abuses, which is being generated by a hierarchical system that doesn't necessarily have the checks and balances, or that has been generated in such a way just to, have very obedient servants for its agenda of free labor, well, then double binds is a communicative dilemma. And Liv Gabrielson, who was representing state in Norway, which is a very interesting picture of what is happening in so many ways through the past 140 years of Bible students, or Jehovah's Witnesses as they're now known. You have an individual, as you've rightly said, receiving two or more conflicting, contradictory messages. Now, if you're a teacher and you're giving that to students under your care, this, what are you doing to your students? This is going to be creating harm, because it's impossible to supply both. But now to even inquire, well, Colin, what do you mean when you're telling me to do this and you're telling me to do the opposite? Just to inquire is now wrong. So your third option, where you've now got this conflict, is also punishable. You're also thrown into the gulag, or you are eliminated or punished or whatever. So a successful response to one message, it just results in failure, failure, failure. It creates here's the expression, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't situation. That's what it does. So
yes,
your key characteristics and examples is you've got conflicting demands. It's very demanding, and the person's told that you got to obey. You're told to do one thing, but you're now explicitly punished for doing it, or told it's opposite, and there is no escape route. And you imagine somebody who has complex trauma or accumulating trauma because they've been kept so busy that they've never been able to resolve those things. You know, the body remembers, the mind remembers, the stream of consciousness remembers. And you can have a situation where there's just a simple trigger. It's a sound, or it's a little accident, or something like this, or it's a spill. And because you've got no escape resolution, it puts you into complex post-traumatic stress disorders, or you start seeing that this is a recurring theme that's coming through. So I suppose you've got an example like this, Colin. Colin, be spontaneous, or you tell a student, be spontaneous. Well, if you try, you're not being spontaneous because it's your paradox. It's your paradox situation.
Right.
If you don't fail, you fail the command. So it's mixed messaging. Okay, that's a ludicrous one, but it's just to illustrate that, you know, there's mixed messages. A parent, for instance, could say, "I love you," while physically pushing a child away, and you're going, what's this messaging? So this is what's happened in your high control environment, where your end was supposed to come and your perfect governance was supposed to take over, and we're seeing prophecy failing, and you can't even, you know, explore these things, and persons are trapped by it. They've created or given away all their independence in the hopes that this would be the ultimate kind of act of faith, and now they're trapped in that system. And so you've got this fracture that's occurring, and harm to children, harm to guardians, harm to people trapped in these systems. And this is how we get the Norway spotlight. I don't know if that helps, Colin,
Yeah.
or if you can simplify that.
Absolutely. And I think even the witness organization took that concept to one other level, where obviously, okay, if you choose to not be with us anymore, there's going to be consequences, dire consequences. So you have to choose to stay with us, stay with Jehovah. But if you stay with us and then you make a mistake, you're going to be punished as well. So you're, like you said, you're always going to fail at some point, because staying with the group, going with the grain, doesn't guarantee that you're going to be accepted, because there's always that you can't question anything, you can't, you know, and eventually that's impossible. There's always going to be something at some point in your life where you're going to step back and go, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this? Why? And as soon as that happens, you're going to be marked. Right. As soon as you start, oh, you know, I don't know about brother so and so, we might keep an eye on him because, you know. So, like you said, it's you're set up to fail. You're set up to fail one way or the other, and like you said, that this is the practice that they've kind of trapped themselves into, because now with what's going on with them being in the spotlight as much as they are now in these court cases, then they're constantly having to discredit people and say, oh, well, you see, that person was kind of a dissenter, they're no longer with us. You know, they're really, really eager to separate themselves from people very quickly. And so I think, like you said, that's a consequence of this practice. What I thought was really interesting, and something you touched on that I think is worthy of speaking about a lot more, and this is probably why I'm pretty sure that the organization, it really doesn't want active members watching these court cases, because any, let's say, good witness, any good indoctrinated, believing witness, like I was, who really believed it, right? And I was good at what I was doing, and I was, you know, adamant, and I was passionate about it, and I believed that we were God's only people. And so what they would teach us, and I talked about this in a video, you brought it out as well, that above anything else, you had to defend Jehovah, right? We did it at school, we did it at work, we did all my life. It doesn't matter what consequences it brings. It doesn't matter, you might lose a job, you might end up in jail, but at the end of the day, we obey God rather than men, right? And so when you're asked about your belief system, when you're asked about, is it true? You do this, you do that, you believe this. Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, if you're really asking, if you want to know, yes, I do believe this. I do believe I am I'm part of God's only people. Yes, if you don't become a part of this religion, you're going to die. That's the reality of it. However, you're an active witness right now, and you watch just pick one. Pick one. Pick a court case that Watchtower has been a part of, whether it was in the United States, Philadelphia, Colorado, any of these places where there were court cases because of the CSA, right, the child abuse, or Montana, in this case, right, Montana, yes, Montana, or this case with Norway over the practice of shunning, or the Australian Royal Commission, another great example. And you're going to see the same modus operandi in every single one, which is the very people who are the leaders of this organization, the representatives of Jehovah, are doing exactly the opposite of what they told you to do. Yes, they want you to lose your job. They want you to go to jail. They want you to suffer persecution, because then they can use that. They can put it in their literature. They can, motivate other people. Oh, look at Brother Colin. He's, lost his job, or he's in prison in Russia because of this or because of that. But they themselves are not willing to do that. They go on the stand, and what do? Oh, is it really true that you're the only spokespeople for Jehovah? Oh, well, that's a bit presumptuous. That sounds presumptuous to say that. And you're going, whoa, wait a minute. No, that's not presumptuous. That's the truth. That's what we teach. That's what we believe, right? So yeah. You were triggered emotionally by watching this court case. I think I got that from, I watched reviews of each day, and there was an emotional charge that came with watching this. So you, myself, we're one examples of many, many people out there that maybe have felt the same. So what was happening to you as you watch this?
Well, I'm very sensitive to cognitive load, and usually the cognitive load is happening when there's a paradox, because now the mind is fixed on that, which is your control system. That's exactly what it is. And Liv Gabrielson was now saying, in effect, that the state was placed into the same paradox situation, or into the same dilemma. It was saying, well, if we supply you the money, are we facilitating an abusive situation? If we withdraw it, are we now accused of going against a religious system and saying, well, we're not treating people fairly here? And we also come under accusation. We also come under the watchdog of whether it's European Union or a committee that's now regulating our governmental actions, and whether we want to be part of a club, be it United Nations or European Union, whatever it is. How do we answer this thing? You know what? We're not going to answer it. We're going to get rid of the cognitive load. It's not even emotional. We just don't have the energy for it. Oh, I know what is there to handle this. Supreme Court, that's what you guys are there for. Let's bring in our best judges. That's the pinnacle of our society system. It's the best that we can do, and the load is now off. Essentially, that's what it is. It's not necessarily a pursuit of justice. It's going, we have a problem. We want to shift it. And mm-hmm. I know that might sound like a mean concept, but essentially that's getting closer to the reality. Yeah, it might be an oversimplification, but it's getting closer to what the situation is. Yeah,
because you definitely saw, as this case was unfolding, and mentioning the defense lawyers, and Matthew, help us here with the names because I'm terrible with. That's why I'm referring to them as the prosecutor of the defense, because especially the Norwegian names, I'm just, my brain just is not having it for some reason. But this concept of the defense lawyer, is it that they're not exactly telling the truth, or just short of lying, right? And you're in between this. Like, for example, when he said, and I was reading it, and I just put my head down. I just was like, oh my goodness, do I laugh or do I cry? Like, oh, yeah. this shunning, that's a word that the apostates use. We don't even use that word. Okay. All right. So I'll give you that. Okay. So you don't use the particular term. This is what I mentioned before, a couple of months back, when I put out this video and I talked about this, like, red alert, what was going on in Norway and why they lost the appeal. Because if you're going up against the masters of terminology and doublespeak and manipulating these concepts, you have to be on top of your game. So the defense comes out and says, that's made up by the apostates. We don't use this term shunning. Oh, really? Okay. All right. Yeah. So let's say I'm going to go along with that for a second and say, all right. Yeah, you probably don't use specifically that word. And when I saw, literally, I laughed out loud. I literally laughed out loud when I saw social distancing. And I thought, wow, are we talking about what? Social distancing like in COVID? This is the 1.5 meters, stay away from another person. That's what comes to my mind, because that's when that term really started to become used. Social distancing was used during COVID, right? Was used during the pandemic. And so I'm sitting here going, wow, that is wild. That is wild, because when you talk about social distancing, that's a whole nother concept. But if you look at what the actual practice is, shunning, whether they want to call it that, or they want to call it limited association or social distancing, it doesn't change the fact that this is what is practiced within the organization, because it is a systemic procedure. Because what I saw the defense was trying to push was that this is normal in all of our cultures, in Western culture, in European culture. Okay, and they always use this example. They say, like, you might have like every family, you've got that one family member that you kind of distance yourself from. You're like, hey, I don't like this one family member. We don't agree, so I stay away from him or her, right? And he says that happens in every culture. We make these decisions to limit our association with certain people. And I say, yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. However, there's a big difference there. Who decides the terms of that distancing? You do. It's your choice. Nobody's forcing you to do it. Nobody's telling you that you have to do it. You're simply saying, I am going to, okay, I'll just use an example here, okay? And anybody that's in the chat, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, disclaimer, I'm not trying to single out a political party or anything like that, but all of you know that this is happening right now. In the US, this is happening. Let's say that in your family, just an example, you're liberal, you're Democrat, and you have a family member that's MAGA. I think you already know where I'm going with this, right? So you can't stand to be in the same room together. So you basically, because you can't agree on any political issues whatsoever. So you stay away from each other. You limit your contact with this family member because it's always going to be a conflict. Okay. However, I made that decision. I can limit my contact with that person. I can talk to that person at any moment if I so choose. Now, if we look at the Watchtower organization, is that the case? No, this is a directive that comes down from the leadership. And not only that, it's from the Bible, right? They tell us God is telling you that you must remove this person from the congregation. And they pull out 1 Corinthians, right? Look what Paul said here. Don't even eat with such a man. And so they say that your very obedience and salvation to God, right? Your obedience to God and thus your salvation depends on you cutting off your association with an ex-member or someone who didn't repent because they committed a sin. So it's not your choice. This is where the double binding consequences come in here, because they're saying it's your choice. That's what they say on the court case. That's what the lawyer says. It's your choice. Oh, each member has the choice if they want to cut off that family member, which is a half truth, right? I mean, yes, you can choose either way, obviously. But if you don't choose the way that they told you, there's going to be consequences, right? You are also going to be punished in a certain way. So it's not just a cultural practice. It's a biblical practice according to them. And it's God himself telling us, if someone's not doing what I'm telling them to be doing, then you need to cut them off. You need to shame them. You need to, by guilt, make them come back to the organization. There's a huge difference there. Huge difference between someone cutting off a family member and what is practiced and what is handed down as directive within this religious organization. Completely different. But what happens? The defense lawyer focuses everybody's attention on a word. He doesn't talk about the practice. He doesn't talk about where it comes from. He says, we don't use shunning. You see, the apostates made that up. So he's trying to shift by telling a half truth, right? He's half lying, but he's also telling a half truth. But he's strategically shifting the attention away from what their practice is. Excuse me. And they're saying that this is the word that we do not use, right? Same thing happened in Australia. Oh, well, we don't disfellowship people. They disfellowship us. That was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard in my life, coming from a governing body member of all people. That was, wow. I mean, no wonder they don't want witnesses watching these. That would be just earth-shattering to hear something like that. We don't disfellowship people? Jeffrey? Really? Wow. Well, that's news to me, because we most certainly do. But so the word play is just wow. It's like this is it's a verbal gymnastics that's going on during. To, like we said, what's the whole purpose of this case? All they need to do is plant a little bit of doubt. That's all they need to do. They don't have to show that they're wrong. They don't have to show that they're right. All they need to do is put some doubt in there and say, you know what? Maybe the state didn't quite, the state just hasn't put their case out there as well as they could have. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. Not about being right. It's not about being wrong. It's not about being guilty or not guilty. It's about who argues better. That's the bottom line. That's what the legal system is about. So let me see here we catch up on here. Oh yeah. All right. Sorry guys. I gotta catch up in here on the comments. I don't want to leave your comments out. So first of all, we'll just make some commentary on this here. Desert has water mentioned. My previous order started in 1798, evolved in 1874, got inaugurated in 1879. Okay, I see where you're going. I see what you're saying now. Died in 1914, revived in 1922. Exactly. Yeah. And let me see here. Jeff said, apostates didn't create the word apostate in the JW definition. Apostates expose the JW definition for what it truly is. That is exactly it. Exactly right. Very interesting. Yeah, and that's the problem is once we show everybody else what that particular word means or practice means, then the organization is forced to come out and firefight. So we call that putting out fires, right? These little things come up here, something else comes up there, and they have to run out there and say, no, but that's, that's not. So it would be really interesting right now, and I hope if anybody can let us know about this coming up here this year, with everything that's going on right now, it's going to be really interesting to see what the next Shepherd the Flock of God manual will look like. That will be very interesting because there's been a lot of changes in recent times, and depending on what happens in Norway, there are going to be more changes. That's why I think the Norway ruling will be quite it's going to set a precedent and a before and after when it comes to how they deal with people in the congregation, whether it be people that leave, ex-members, or are removed, deleted, whatever they want to say. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens out of this, because once the Supreme Court rules on this, then that's going to be definitive. That's going to be the end of it. So, so Jeff says here they probably going to have to mothball the Shepherd book. Probably, yeah. Yeah, that's very, I think, very possible that could happen, because it's also very public now, which it never was in the past. But now everybody can get a copy of the Shepherd book, which to them is just like that's the worst thing in the world, because that book was always private. It was unknown until the age of the internet rolled around. Then it became more available. So that's something definitely that they don't like. Let's see here. Get this here. Yeah. So why reduce liability potential? That's right. So as we were talking about before, Matthew, here's a question I want to throw to you. We were talking before we started the live stream, but I'd like to get your thoughts on this as well, and anybody in the chat as well. Please give us your thoughts. So the prosecutor brought up right around day 2 that even if the Watchtower organization loses this court case and they have their state funding revoked, okay, that's all they're losing. The only thing that they're losing is money from the state. They're not going to be removed as a religion. They're not going to be persecuted. They can still congregate. They can still preach. They can still proselytize people. So what are they fighting for? What is the underlying really argument of this whole, what are they actually litigating about? What are they fighting for? What are your thoughts, Matthew?
Yeah, that's a very astute question, Colin. First of all, I want to talk about laughing and crying. There was somebody who was becoming a Jehovah's Witness, a student, and I had to give them very bad news. And they just burst out laughing. And I said, wow, this is just awful news. I mean, this is tragic news. They had been involved in litigation themselves, abusive control, and had gone to court. And she just burst out laughing. I said, how can you laugh at this thing? I'm sort of trying to tickle you here with words or provide this kind of responses. Matt, let me tell you something right now. I have been on the brink of, the end. Okay. I have a choice. I realize that I have a choice to laugh or to cry about it, and I choose to laugh about it. I choose to see that there is that side. And it's when you hear me laughing, it's not because I undermine the seriousness. It's just I go, this is the coping mechanism that I have to put in place. And I found that very empowering. And so now your question coming to the JW representative, Anders Risdal. So anybody who wants a spelling on that, it's Anders, Risdal, RYSD, double SDAL, RYSSDAL. You're talking about an extremely accoladed lawyer here. I mean, this is not anybody who's incompetent. This is top tier stuff, 5-star rated, and very experienced with dealing with, how can I say, the double bind or catch-22 situations which Supreme Court is designed to deal with. And you can see this. He's Harvard trained. I mean, look at the profile. It's glowing. It really is. He's 70 years of age, and he's got the years experience behind him. Successful litigation office. What's it called? Glittertind or Glittertind. This is the advocate Glittertind that he works with, and it's as flash as it comes. Oh, really, it is. But then also Liv Gabrielson doesn't get to the position that she's in. I know that she was looking under the weather and with a cold, but remember, on this level, it's also performative. So you don't know how much she's amplifying that as well. And I would say never underestimate either side on what it's projecting in the court, even with its micro expressions and things like this. So your Anders was pursuing this matter of, no, there has to be some kind of disciplinary action, and he went into great lengths, and I'm open to correction on this, but it sounded to me in the translation, or as I was translating that in real time, it sounded to me, and I might be an error on the translation, but it sounded to me like his brief that he received from JW was, we need to have some form of disciplinary control system for things like smoking, drug addiction, fornication, adultery, the more obvious ones that you could say a person comes in with eyes wide open and says, oh yeah, I agree to those things. That sounds like a reasonable thing, or some persons have no idea about that disciplinary arrangement, but you could say that a lot do know about it, and they go, yeah, we'd like to say that is a sensible way of governing or putting discipline. We accept that it's from Jehovah. But what he wasn't emphasizing is when there is a liability situation. Because what a lot of persons don't realize is if you have any kind of infraction on the more obvious things, let's say smoking, and you say, Colin, you're the elder, I apologize. Let me tell you something. If I've put anybody out, I've already sent my apologies to them, and I've joined, or I'm now on nicotine patches, and I'm getting off this thing, and I've got some kind of help, and I've made efforts to do this. You're not removed. You can actually stay in the congregation. There's restrictions that are placed upon you. Even if it's of a sexual nature, so some kind of deviance, it could even be very extreme. As long as you apologize and you go, well, all the parties that are involved, I've got my apologies. This is what I have actively done. Here's my behavioral change, not just a sorry, but a behavioral change. Then that person is allowed in the congregation. I mean, one of my jobs in the congregation was destruction of files. And I looked at 20 years and I'm going, how is this a people that is actually separate from the world. You essentially can do anything you like. You can be involved in drugs. You can be involved in these sexual deviances or sexual activity which would be frowned upon out in the open. You can get blotto drunk. You can deceive. You can defraud in business. The business scams that are going on are just incredible. And we're going back 20, 30 years that I'm looking at these files. You talk about a cognitive load. My brain was burning with this. But I saw, as long as you have sufficient acts of repentance, apology, or you're part of the club and you say, look, I'm very grateful for being forgiven. And they go, yeah, we've also done the same.
Right.
You get into this clique that is established. In other words, like minds, birds of a feather that flock together. And it's, essentially, the system works very, very clever that it compartmentalizes cases that are of a tricky nature, where there is a potential litigation. For years, I never dealt with apostasy cases. Never. In 20 to 25 years, I never dealt with an apostasy case. Ever. Never happened. You go, Matt, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. It's controlled compartmentalizing. That's what it is. So your incentivized agents are sent in, your needs graters, those that are signatories, those that are fiduciaries, those who have signed non-disclosure agreements, those who've got some kind of financial thing going on, even if it's property that's being rented to the organization. And that's how persons are receiving funds from Worldwide Work, because there's a percentage that's going to them. The incentivized ones are the ones that are sent in there because they have to defend the system, which is their livelihood. That is that they've got those kind of interests in. So if you're not seen as being part of that system, be it in the admin 2000 system or the hub, which is your computer controlled way that things are organized to specific degrees within the religion or within the structure hierarchy, then you have no idea about it. And that's why I say I was living in, for a large part, a bubble, because I never saw these cases where there is this ejection with no way of actually coming back. They say that you can repent, but it's impossible, because if you repent where there's a liability, you have to now say, okay, what is the way that the liability has changed? Are you telling me
right? Exactly.
Use of process, and Colin, it gets to this stage that they can say, well, yeah, you're suffering from anxiety. Why don't you get medicated like our uncle here in the branch, who's suffering from anxiety disorder or some kind of disorder, because he cannot reconcile the ethical conflict, because that's what happens. And the solution becomes not a holistic thing, not catharsis. No, none of these things, none of these spiritual paths. It becomes something like a medical solution. And then they have this is my opinion, Colin, the audacity to now interview that person on a regional or international regional assembly level. And he says, my sinful body, my sinful mind put me into this situation. But when you realize that this person is heavily medicated and now declared a hero,
yes,
you go, whoa, this is... So now
I know.
with that realization, how do you unsee what you see?
Right.
But I know you were very specific with your question, and maybe it sounds like I'm dodging. Bear in mind that these people took 3 days to discuss the so-called simple question.
It's not a simple question, though. That's not what the purpose of it was. It's to lay bare the complexities when you ask something that is seemingly a simple question, but there's more to it than that underlying. There's so many levels to what's going on here. And what's interesting about that is, for example, with the funding that they receive, I can give you examples of here in Honduras. I've been to many and churches here do not get state funding or anything of the sort. None of them do. That doesn't exist. But you will see, and I've seen this happen many times in different churches, where people show up, a person shows up that either might be under the influence of a drug, or they might be intoxicated, or it might be a person that everybody knows is immoral, or whatever the case might be. Or it might be someone with, that's mentally unstable. They'll come into the church and nobody kicks them out. They're not shown to the door. They'll come in, they can sit down, they can listen, whatever, even if it's a member of the church that maybe did something serious. They cannot close the church to a person. That's not the role of the church. The role of the church is not to tell you, you cannot come here and be in the presence of God. So when I look at what they're fighting for in this case, they're potentially going to lose this funding, but yet at the same time, what is the organization doing to help? For example, let's say a member of your congregation smokes or gets into drugs or is a drunkard or fornicates or whatever it is. Obviously, I think, let's be realistic. I think in any religion, there are going to be some consequences, and they'll probably say, hey, if you're practicing these things, you can't teach, you can't get up in front of the congregation, you're not an example. But keep coming to God, keep coming to church, be a part of the community. And anytime you see that person outside of the church, you can still talk to them. You can still have a relationship with them. You can still tell them, hey, I hope if you need help, what can I do for you? I want you to come back to the Lord, come back to God. What can we do? What are they doing? All they do is kick them out. Oh, you got into drug use? You're not repentant, because that's not a question of repentance. That person, whether they want to or not, they're addicted to something and they're going to say, no, because they want to keep using that drug. So what is your organization doing to help that person? What suggestions are you making for them for treatment? What are you saying to them, for example, like you said, okay, so you have a friend in the congregation. Let's say Matthew has a friend, a good friend who's a brother in the Kingdom Hall, and he knows that brother, because of a situation or whatever, is stressed out, starts smoking. Okay, and so, okay, what do? Does Matthew go to that person and say, hey, you know what, brother, I'm really sorry about this situation you're going through. I know you're under a lot of stress, and I understand what's going on. But the Bible also tells us that all of our faculties need to be clean and this and that. What can we do together here? How can I help you? Can we go to the doctor together, or can I suggest to you, like you said, there are nicotine patches, there are this, there's that, there's therapies, no. What does the organization do? You figure that out. Get out, first of all, get out, get away from us, separate yourself from us, and then get your life back together. Goodbye, good luck. And if you get your life back on track, come back and grovel to us and show repentance, humiliate yourself, and then we'll put you back on the 6 month or a year, humiliation process for you to get back into the congregation. So there's absolutely no system set up to actually help people or the community or anything like this. Just kicking people out doesn't help anything, because the church is supposed to be something that provides stability within a community.
Yeah.
That's what the church is there for. So that's why other churches, like I said, even here in Honduras, they have programs where they help people that are in economic problems. They help people who are on the streets. They help people who have drug addictions by either getting them medicines or helping them to get into programs or therapy or detoxification or anything like that. It's to help not just their church, it's to keep the community healthy, right? And to keep this unity in the community. So what is the Watchtower organization doing to justify that? For example, what they're fighting for, which is this economic stipend that they get from the government. How are they contributing?
You've exposed it, basically, or not you've exposed it, but you've highlighted the exposure here, Colin. And by the way, I didn't mean to just interject.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
But okay, thank you for that. Look, at one stage you had congregations, you had persons that had an intimate knowledge spiritually about, like what you were describing, what's a way forward. If somebody has an addiction, for instance, whatever it is, it could be money, it could be sex, could be drugs, could be smoking, it could be alcohol. I mean, those are the typical kind of things. It represents a vacuum somehow. Spiritual, emotional, mental, all of those things together. I actually don't separate from the body. I say it's all interconnected. There's a weave that goes on. And let's say, for instance, person's got a chemical imbalance. Do we know about it? Do we actually know what the imbalance is there? Is the person suffering from Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease? If on Parkinson's disease, guess what? The person is going to have tremendous difficulty in trying to regulate with the normal firewalls because they just aren't there anymore. So they're going to perhaps have a pornography addiction. And they're going, I never had this addiction. What's going on? I'm confused by this. And now if your congregation is going by your textbook approach to say, well, let's follow an SLF, this is definitely falling into a category of spiritual pathology according to us, then there is no chance for that person. But then a discerning individual who's understanding, well, hang on a second, there is pathology here. There's a deterioration. There's actually brain mass that's disintegrating here, and it can be slowed down to a certain degree. Well, you've already now, just in your words, differentiated between robotic automaton, no thinking obedience, and somebody who has the discernment and has the insight to recognize what the mechanism is. I've only just chosen one particular example. I mean, it's multifaceted, and our focus isn't Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's or something like this, but it's just choosing a particular irregularity that might be unique to the individual, that a proper person exercising pastoral care would be exercising. And you had congregations that were like this, but as the religion started tightening up, as it was endeavoring to do damage control for its institute and its assets, that fell by the way with your insertion of your needs graters and your incentivized individuals. And you had exceptionally qualified spiritual people sidelined. That's what happened. They were retired, pushed out, because that wasn't what the drive was. Again, it was an exposure of what the real motivation was. And in a lot of cases, it was just like, let's put in our incentivized young guys to push people out so that we can liquidate a kingdom hall. And you're going, was that the reason? No, that's not the reason. Yes, it is the reason. And that's brutal. If you've put all of your trust in going, no, we want to take a holistic approach on what the root causes are of human misery and trying to get the best human potential or spiritual potential out of an individual, you're just hamstrung. And that's the tremendous betrayal that has occurred, and the dissonance that has been put in place, even with a younger generation that might be sitting in service desk who has watched the ARC, by the way, because that was a requirement. If you go, no, Bethel didn't, or Jehovah's Witnesses didn't watch ARC. No, they did. It just depends what tier level that a person was in, and the kind of confidentiality or non-disclosure that they might have been bound by, or saying, well, let's just keep this within the family. referring to maybe the inner workings of the branch. It's an incredible complexity, Colin, and I'm very aware that I can rattle off about these complexities. So I'm just going to pause it there and defer to you as chairman if you've got another question.
Yeah. Well, and it's, what you see, I think when you see today with, for example, as this case in the United States with Jeffrey Epstein, that's been so public now, and you see the reach that this person had, literally, interestingly, and I made a video about this, speaking about Norway, even the Norwegian royal family is involved in that.
Yes.
There are some ties to that, and interestingly, so you look at what is it that we're actually up against here, because if you look at the history of the organization, and you will not find any literature anywhere where they say, for example, a person that committed adultery, or a person that smoked, or a person that's a drunkard, or any of those things, they're still human beings, they're still brothers, we have to accept them, forgive them. It doesn't say that anywhere. And yet there are several articles where they say specifically rapists and brothers who have been involved in PDF file actions are still human beings. They need to be forgiven. You need to treat them, with kindness and respect. And I go, wow. When I look at that, wow, you get no forgiveness or consideration if you have mental health issues, if you smoked, if you do. But if you forced yourself upon somebody or abused a child, you're a human being and you need forgiveness. So that's why I don't just think, I know that, thank goodness, this case is not about that specifically. This is about shunning. But the cases that are about that have an uphill battle, because this is an international system when it comes to trafficking of children and minors, and there are a lot of people in positions of power that want that status quo to continue, and to keep it that way, to keep it under wraps.
Yeah. Well, that's
a whole other that's a whole other topic in itself. But what we're talking about here is that when you look at what's behind all of these, these court cases, what they're actually fighting for is they want that secrecy to continue. They want that, this ability to, if people are not doing what we want them to, silence them, get rid of them. Because if they lose that, then it's kind of like a domino effect.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect litigations that they have in these other areas, like CSA and things like that. So I think actually this Norway case is going to be very, very groundbreaking, earth-shattering, if it goes in the direction of overturning the appeal. If they overturn the appeal and say, no, you know what, but that in itself, in fact, I know I'm all over the place here today, but that worried me in itself. When you look at the judicial system, how can there be such differences within a single judicial system, where you have the initial case, the state sides with the prosecution, and they say, okay, we're removing this, we're taking away this funding. Then it goes to appeal court, same case, gets overturned. No, that was wrong. What the first case, no, didn't convince us, give them the funding back. Now we're at the Supreme Court. I mean, it's just back and forth. I don't know. It's, there's lots of interests that this is touching behind the scenes that I think goes far beyond just one religion shunning people. But
Yeah, you're right, Colin. Your instinct is, look, it is controversial. Person say, well, can you be conclusive, guys? No, we can't. But as soon as you start seeing Watchtower appearing in certain files which have been made public, are you allowed to question this? Well, the whole idea, exactly like you said, was no, you shouldn't even be looking into these kind of things. And why?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to have to deal with the accumulation of these problems, and that's what it is. It's now come to a stage where there is such an accumulation, because it was always, well, the end of the world is coming and there's going to be this great reset, but eventually it adds up to such a degree that you can use the biblical term, it's clear up to heaven. It's this mass that is just accumulated that's creating this fracture, of tectonic proportions, But yeah, I think you 100% spot on. And I saw that in the comments. The idea is silencing. Shut up, obey. We're not interested in this. Let's just keep business as you. Yeah.
Well, because like you just mentioned, in a case like that, you won't even get to the question. You don't even get that far. Before you even get to the questioning part about what you saw, they're going to say what you said. Wait a minute. Why were you watching that? Why did you even watch it? Why were you watching the ARC? Why were you watching the Norway case? What were you doing watching that? You know that's from Satan, right? You don't even get to the question. They cut you off right there at the beginning, where they put you into doubt. They put you into question, your faith, your obedience, right? If you were really obedient, you wouldn't even be watching that. And you see what happens now? You see what the result is? Now you've got questions. Now you're doubting, right? So they bog you down in this quagmire of guilt. And wait a minute, oh, brother, has Satan gotten to you? Is that what's happening? Have you made room for Satan to get in there? And then a witness will go, oh man, have I opened myself up to Satan? And then your whole world is, oh my God, is this a demon attack? So they've got you before you even get to that,
So here's a question, Colin, that gets sent my way. And if I'm including you in an unfair way, please, by all means, just tell me. But I'm going to say us, because the way I talk to you and I suss you out, I go, here's Colin, you're looking for solutions. Matt Gray, you're looking for solutions. Right. Now we've got something that is a common interest, be it our students, be it our work, be it our family, be it our friends, be it our own wounds that we're carrying. What are the solutions? What is the actual solutions? And I'm gonna start it off without putting a load onto you and saying, okay, well, Colin, you've got to come up with something really great and fast on a live stream. That's not fair. So I'm going to try and take the heat off. I've posed the question, but I'm going to try and make it stop. So I'm involved here, I'm going to say this. What was the thing that you weren't allowed to do? You weren't allowed to make a record. You weren't allowed to write it down. Everything that the authority structure did was in writing. It was a letter. It was a book. It was a video. It was a publication. All right. And they go, don't go beyond what's written. Don't go beyond what's written. So now you have a situation where, there's an elder red card, or a group of elders that have got together, and it's a red card situation. They are guilty. We've got to say alleged. You're not allowed to say that. Even if you've got evidence, let's say, for instance, you have got a video of elders doing the unthinkable, which is actually a disassociation offense. If they do that, they're actually disassociated because they've gone beyond their mandate of authority, which is scripture. So if you've got that so-called evidence, and I'm going to get to this, what blew me away was, in litigation, that's not evidence. It's only evidence when a court has analyzed it, or a third party has analyzed it and said, we verify that has now gone against. So all that is an allegation, or it's something that you can use
Correct.
as a deposition. And I'm going, how do you get your mind around these semantics? And I think this is why people just go, this is straight up lying. Matt, this is straight up lying. You do this, Matt. It drives us crazy. And I'm going, well, yeah, this is very, very difficult, because we've got these parallel systems where somebody's using Black's Law Dictionary, and you're going, that wasn't what I was taught at school. And that's what it exposes, and you bring in the Epstein situation. How is it that somebody can operate for 14 years in a way that society considers as depraved or immoral or blackmail, and not go to prison for 14 years, meaning that they're able to operate like that? Or let's get away from Epstein. Let's go to Enron. Enron was able to operate for 10 years.
Right.
So you're going, there's something fundamentally flawed in the system, and that's how the system works. And you come out of something like JW, and you're going, oh, I'm seeing these patterns everywhere. That's what I'm getting from your story with Epstein now. And by the way, it does look like Watchtower is involved in the mentions. It is, and it's. I must clarify for the live stream. It might be mentioned there. Say, for instance, Kushner's deal with the East River properties.
Correct. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So, but the point is, if there is a flag, are you allowed to investigate this and go, well, what's the patterning? This is a point of interest. I want to be able to do this. Whereas, of course, if you're immersed in that high control system, you're so busy, you just don't have the time to be able to do that, which is exactly how it works. And that's why YouTube is regulated, or our social media is regulated with censorship, because essentially humankind is running like this. This is how your artificial authority structures work, and people don't have sovereignty, or they can't work according to Socratic or natural law, because it just removes this whole thing. You can't have a solar panel and just take power from the sun. You have to be dependent upon, the electricity board somehow, so that you keep coming back. Yeah. So it's all about control, and that's what it exposed. You're going, well, is this thing about money? Actually, yeah, it is about money, because that's how you quantify your control over people's energy and their time.
Oh yeah, and you see this all the time. It's getting worse and worse. I had I'm trying to think which. I can't remember, but there was a video I did some months ago, and immediately, I can't remember what word I used, but it was both in the title of the video, and I used a word in the video, and I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been the video where I talked about Watchtower telling female victims that they needed to forgive their perpetrator. Okay. And so I went back. Yeah, and I went back, and I thought, because right away I tried to monetize the video for ads, right? And it came back as, this is not ideal for these companies. They don't want to put their name on it. No, we're not having it. And I was like, wow, okay. So I went back, and I thought, oh, I bet it was the title, because I tried to put that word in there in a certain way. And so I said, okay, I'm going to get rid of that. I went back, re-uploaded the video again. I erased it, re-uploaded it with a different title, and it's still, the monetization was deactivated. It said, no, the ad companies are not having it. So I thought, oh, okay, so it's not just that, it's the language as well. So I scrapped the whole video, redid the whole thing, and I don't remember how I said it. I think I said the R apists, and I put a separation in there. These perpetrators who are involved in R ape,
Those
right?
those ape
Right.
orangutan
Right.
monkeys
Exactly.
of the wild. Yes.
Right. And then once I did that, then the video went through and it was fine.
Okay.
Right. But they just like we're talking about, there's a whole system behind all of this that's even greater. It's greater than Jeffrey Epstein. It's greater than Watchtower. It's greater than, there's this whole economical system that has to do with advertisements, that has to do with the media, that they are the ones, and they are the only ones that have the duty and the right to shape the public's thought process and opinions about whatever it might be. They are the ones that do that. But when you do it, then they're going to demonetize your video. You might get a strike on your channel. It might go against the guidelines of YouTube. And so you realize that there's this whole system that's against us trying to actually say the truth. And I think what it all comes back to is what we're talking about through this whole live stream, about why in the courts they're so particular about words. And for example, saying something is alleged, and you know, in the end, it's not really, it has absolutely nothing to do with being right or wrong, being guilty or not guilty. It's simply about who can convince the judges, or who can convince the jury, whatever the judicial system it is, depending on which country it is. It's just about who argues better, who's a better speaker, who twists the words better, so that like you said, just to get evidence. I think it happens in the United States as well. Just to get evidence put into a case, what happens first of all? Let's say the prosecution has some evidence. They came across some evidence. They say, wow, this is straight up. I mean, this is damning. Well, first of all, they have to send it to the defense and say, they have to disclose. It's called disclosure, right? They have to disclose this evidence to the defense and say, hey, we've got this evidence. We're sending it to you so that you have knowledge of it. And then the judge has to look at it and say whether or not he's going to admit that evidence or not. Okay. And it can go either way. We've seen that in court cases, right? Where they say, okay, can we admit such and such exhibit? And the judge might say, yes, I'll allow that to be exhibited. Or he might say, no, actually, I've reviewed it and that's not going to be admitted. It wasn't admissible into court. So, excuse me. It's a complicated swamp to navigate.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this one now, Colin, because already I'm hearing a solution. I heard, still present that information. That's what I heard here, right? The court of public opinion. The more that persons don't actually give up and say, look, irrespective of the pushback, irrespective of the censorship, I'm still going to document this too. I say the truth wave. In other words, I'm still going to apply the truth. I'm not going to over sensationalize this thing. I'm going to endeavor to keep my emotions out. Although if I have to acknowledge that I did get emotional, well, that's the truth then, and I'll put that there. So I'm above board and I'm transparent about my actual feelings here, so that you can say, oh, well, at least you're giving us the opportunity to argue that you got emotional. Your emotional logic took over, because that's still the truth. So what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say, Colin, from what I hear you saying, still it's worthwhile to document. It's still worthwhile to have a live stream like this. It's still worthwhile to have Jeff Parnell coming in on the stream, and the desert has water, and who else have we got here? Pam, all the various ones that are attracted to these kind of subjects. Say, well, guess what? You make up that public opinion. That is building up the pressure against the system, because the awareness is to such a degree that persons don't have faith in the governance. They have to restore some kind of public trust again. They have to do that. Otherwise, they lose the control. People just go, well, we have to eliminate this thing. There has to be this huge paradigm shift where we have, what is it, the zeitgeist as we see the rainforests being diminished, we're saying, no, we can't actually listen to your 5-year plan because that's completely ineffective. It's going to take 180 years before we can push back on regrowing the trees. This is the existential crisis we've got to, the bigger picture that you're talking about. So documents, they count, because you can start seeing the patterns as soon as it's documented. It's no longer hearsay now. It's no longer that. And I think that's why YouTube is very good, because in a way it's transcribing as we're talking.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's a positive that's coming out of this. The only reason why it got to the stage that it did was through the documentation, the affidavits, the testimonies, so they couldn't deny it anymore. That was what.
Well, and I think absolutely, I agree absolutely. And
she says, must the states fail before they can do anything? Yeah.
Well, and I think the documentation of it, like you're saying, regardless of censorship, regardless of what the system is against us, it must happen. Somebody has to do it, because there is still, underneath all of that, there is still an absolute truth. There is still an absolute truth, and right and wrong. Now, in the moment, that might not come out. We might not see the solution to that today or tomorrow or in 5 years or 10 years. But eventually, these changes are going to come, and these things will be exposed. But why? Because somebody had to put in that effort now to be documenting these things, to be talking about it, to be keeping it relevant, keeping it alive, regardless of what the legal system does, regardless of what the media system does or the political system. There always has to be somebody being the anchor and keeping us all, together and saying, no, this is not right. What's going on is not right. The way this was handled, how they're talking about this censorship, because eventually it will happen. Eventually something will happen. Something will change. And I guess, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for you, for me, for other people that speak out or take notes or document? Yeah. There's no thanks in this. There's no money to be made in this. This is simply, it's a passion project. It's something that we're doing for the posterity, so that we can leave something behind. We can have something done in our societies for the future, for the next generations, that might change at some point. Okay. That's all it is. It's a project it's a vision. It's somebody has to do it.
I agree with you, but I'm gonna take it a step further, if I may, Colin.
Please.
I'm gonna say that the work that you're doing is having a positive effect right now, and I'm gonna substantiate this. The work that you're doing, the stories that you're making, whether you produce a science fiction about a mineral, and you make that the focus in your sci-fi stories, and it's related to your experiences, or it's more direct through the CO Visit channel. I'm going to tell you this. I am being written to. Now, I play with words. People say, are you a Jehovah's Witness? I say, yes. And they, what? How? No! What do you? No! How can you do? And I go, just calm down a bit, but please, if you allow me just to explain, I'm a witness of what's happened. I'm also going to play with these words too, because I want to get the most traction to try and help people. So it's not that I'm being deceptive. In a way, I'm kind of using the advocacy strategy that they're used to.
Yes.
What is it? Deuteronomy 5:1. If you have seen something that's damaging to society, well, witness about it. Well, I can witness about Jehovah. I can witness about this particular society or a high control religion or the experiences or whatever. The reality is they booted me. So there we go. Are you calm now? Yes. Okay. You're one of us. Great. So, but I realize it's a fear aspect that's coming because they go, well, are you a spy? We've got to be careful. And go, yeah, I get that. So no points against you. I get where you're coming from. But at the same vein, too, we're wanting to help people. And I'm saying to you, Colin, your work is having a good effect. There are persons here in Africa that I will talk about. I don't know about Honduras and what's going on there because I'm not in that network. I'm in this network in Africa. And I'm getting persons writing to me from one part of Africa to another saying, Matt, we are seeing these double bind situations. We're seeing the abuse. I'm an elder. I don't know what to do. Do you know I'm still in the middle of the congregation doing talks?
Yeah.
My heart isn't in it. I'm fractured. And I'm going, the positive thing is you're reaching out. That's great. You still want to help people? Yeah, I still want to help people. Okay, well, who's struggling here? This person. I say, have you documented it? No, I haven't documented it. Do you think you should perhaps document it? And it's happening. It's happening in real time. And here's the mind blow. You've got compartmentalized circuit overseers. You've got ones that are in the know. You've got compartmentalized ones who are going, what is happening? I know of circuit overseers who will never darken the door of Bethel ever again. They don't want to walk on the property. No, really, that's happening because of the injustices that they've witnessed, and they said, I've had enough. I can't do it. So when I get those reports in real time, that to me is showing the fracture. It's showing that, hang on a second, that's a liberated person. There's another liberated person. There's another liberated person. Even if somebody's right in the middle, it's exposing the super sweet facade or the mask that's there. And I'm having even pioneers write to me and saying, Matt, we actually do see the injustice of the situation. And as soon as I asked this question, guess what? I had somebody assigned to me for shepherding. And I said, yeah, what does that tell you? And they said, oh, it's giving us the answer. So I don't know if that's a positive for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that in the least case, we're contributing to the existence of PMOs, and that's there's more and more of them, which is, in my mind, practically, well, if a person is a PMO, then they're already out.
I'll also take it another step further. I actually believe that Anders Risdal, who's very good at his work, all right, was actually responding to what was being posted in the social media in real time. I believe that there was a siphoning filter, and it was filtering up. In my observation and my conclusion, right or wrong, this is how I get through here. I actually believe, or I have personal reasons to believe he was responding to these type of conversations because some of it was too exacting in what he was mentioning. And I was going, they tuned in. So that tells me that this is having the right kind of effect. You can expect pushback. Oh, yeah.
Of course.
But then don't take that negatively. Say, well, that's a positive direction. Yeah. Because now you're a threat. You're doing your job in the correct way.
Absolutely. Well, my friends, I'm gonna have some other obligations today. We're gonna leave this open. We're gonna leave this. This is not the end of this live stream. It's not the end of this topic. So, to be continued. We'll leave this with an open ending, and I know that. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. Jeff said it was nice listening on the chat. Thank you. So, Jeff, you have to join us next time live. You need to come in. I've been trying to get Jeff in here, but I know now.
I really enjoy getting together with you and being able to chat freely and just the free form that you allow. You know, so I know these are quite deep subjects, but in a way, I didn't feel under pressure, and you've got a way of making me feel at ease. So I really am very, very grateful to
Thank
that.
you. Appreciate that.
And there's also a fun factor. I know it's very, very heavy, and we're talking abuse and some of these deep subjects, but in another way too, just the freeness of conversation and also encouraging creativity. The time that I've been able to spend with you, I feel very, very welcomed. I feel there's a good vibe and the sense of healing. So I really, really appreciate you just saying, Matt, why don't we get together and do something? So thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who climbs on, Jeff, and all the various ones in the live stream. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. We appreciate everybody that. I think it's amazing. When a person starts this endeavor, starts a channel, you have no idea what kind of effect it's going to have, if you're going to reach people. And just knowing that there are people that come on here that connect. Hey, Born JW, how are you doing? Thank you. Hopefully you can go back and listen to, we're just about to sign off here, but thank you for stopping in. I appreciate it. Go back and listen to the replay. But just the fact that people connect. And I've had people from all over the world leaving comments saying, yes, this resonated with me. I understand what you're saying. Absolutely. This is, or you helped me, or that's unbelievable. Yeah. Born, we've been on for almost 2 hours now. So, but you can go back and watch the replay once it uploads. So, but I appreciate, we need to have spaces for people to come on and just what you said, to feel welcome, to feel it's an open, safe environment where we can discuss things without the pressure of having to come to conclusions, because there might not be one. There might not be a specific conclusion. And at any rate, even if we do come to a conclusion, it's not up to us, right? Specifically, we're not in this court case. We're not the ones ultimately that are going to be making the decisions. That's irrelevant. What this is it's a therapy for all of us to get together, to hear different points of views, to talk about things, and to be able to express ourselves without judgment, without criticism. But on the other hand, it's healthy to have somebody else challenging you, right? Or to say, like you, Matthew, saying, "Hey, Colin, okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying there, but let me bring out this point, or let me take that a little bit farther, or look at it this way." Okay, so whatever it is that we're talking about, it ends up becoming constructive. That's the word I want to use, constructive, because it's about sharing our different experiences. It's about sharing our different points of views about these. We're all looking at this court case, for example. Every single person in this chat has a different angle on what's happening, because their life experiences have molded them in a certain way, how they see things. So I see things one way, but that's through my filter of my whole life experiences. You see things in some things we coincide, but other things you're going to see differently because of your experiences. So, and that's the beauty of it, right? That's the beauty of being able to, unlike what we experienced as witnesses, where we all had to follow what their point of view was, right? What their directives were. Oh, whatever your points of view are, put that aside, and this is how you must believe. This is how you must opine about things. This is what you must feel about this. So it's all about helping people to get away from that structure. Oh, you have to believe this. You have to feel this way. You have to. No, you don't. We're all human beings. We all have an intrinsic right to believe a certain way, to feel a certain way according to our experiences. And talking with other human beings, what does that do? It opens our minds up to all these other possibilities, maybe things that I didn't think about. Now, after this conversation, I have to sit down and process all of this and go, okay, what things did I take away from this live stream today? How is that going to mold my videos in the future? That's the whole idea. It's not just, okay, well, we did this and now I'm going to continue on with the next video the way I always do it. No, because then what's the point? What's the point of this? The whole point is for us to grow and to, sometimes change. It's not bad to change our points of views, or to say, oh, wow, you know what? I didn't think about that. That really changed everything. So we want to invite everyone to do the same. And certainly, and I'm sure Matthew is always down for these chats, and we'll do more maybe the next weekend. We have a week of vacation here from school, so this whole week I'm off, so that motivates me more. Maybe next weekend we'll do another one. We'll see how that goes. I'll be in contact with you, Matt, to see if you have any we do another one maybe the following weekend, if there's some topic that you want to tackle, or we'll see what happens. And thank you for being willing so late at night to come on. It's very hard because a lot of the people that really get involved with the channel, it's difficult because they're in the UK, they're in South Africa, and we've got this 9-10 hour time difference. And I've had people from Australia, which is almost impossible because of the time difference, because I have not had much luck connecting with people to do live streams with people from other hemispheres like Australia, because of the internet connection, because of the time difference. It's really, really difficult, sadly, because there's some really, really good channels out there and people from that area that have some really good points of views, but I have not been able to concrete an interview with anybody, because I just have not been able to connect with them. And not everybody is as tech savvy when it comes to those things. But that's, such is life. Thank you, Matthew. Born JW, thank you for being here. Jeff, and anybody else. I know there's a lot of other people that maybe just didn't say anything in the chat, but thank you for being here. Desert, thank you. And stay tuned. Stay tuned for more videos, for more live streams. And Matthew will just will be in the after party here for a few minutes. Okay, Born, thank you very much. And we'll see you guys in the next one.